The galaxy was old, older than memory, older than pride, that IT had watched stars ignite and collapse. It had seen empires rise in fire and fall into dust. 30,000 years meant nothing to it. But to civilizations, 30,000 years was enough to forget, and humanity had been forgotten. There were no statues carved in their honor, and no memorial halls, and no great warnings etched into the fabric of history. Just a small entry in ancient archives at a primitive species from a yellow star, barely spacefaring, extinct before they mattered, in O Final War, in O Galactic Plague, in O Dramatic Last Broadcast. They simply vanished, and the galaxy moved on. Point 3 Great powers ruled now. The Valkyrie consensus, ancient, logical, precise. The Mune collective, practical, industrial, powerful. The Asari theocracy, spiritual, mysterious, patient. They shared the stars in uneasy peace. War had not happened in 800 years, and O1 wanted to start again. The galaxy was stable, predictable, comfortably superior. And then, something moved in the dark. The outer veil was not a place anyone visited willingly. It lay beyond the last star clusters, where space thinned and light arrived faint and tired. Sensors glitched. Navigation failed. Data returned strange. But the Valkyrie sent survey ships anyway, because they mapped everything. The survey vessel measured step was routine. Point 12 Scientists. Boring mission. Collect data. Return home. On the 4th week. The sensors detected something. First, it looked like a glitch. Then it resolved into a shape. 4 kilometers long. Artificial. Moving under active propulsion. It was not rock. Not debris. Not gas. It was a ship. Captain Voskeren ordered a full scan. The result came back slowly. Hull composition. Unknown alloys. Design language. Extremely old. Database match. Low confidence. Then the origin flag appeared. Species. Human era. Early galactic exploration status. Extinct. The bridge. Went silent. A dead species. 30,000 years gone. And one of their ships was moving, heading toward the galactic core. Voskeren sent the report that IT was marked as probable sensor error. Filed. Archived. Forgotten again. Except one archivist read it. Sarah 9 was young. Too curious for her own good. She found the contact buried in a low-priority queue. She cross-referenced the hull geometry. She dug through 30,000-year-old human records, radio intercepts, primitive space attempts, incomplete data, but the shapes matched. She escalated it. Her supervisor dismissed it. Instrument error. Outer veil distortion. Case closed. Sarah 9 looked at the image again. A shape in the dark. Moving. She made a decision. She booked leave, said nothing, took a rented scout ship, and pointed it toward the outer veil. 31 days later, she found it. The ship emerged slowly from the black, bigger than expected, layered with repairs. Modified again and again across centuries. Its hull was scarred and rebuilt. Amber lights glowed. From within, warm, alive. The hull markings were faint. Ancient script. Her scanner translated part of it. USCS Enduring Resolve. She whispered the name. Then she opened a hailed. No response. She tried again. Still nothing. Then, a voice, calm, clear, perfect Valkyrie dialect. "We detected your approach 14 hours ago," it said. "I wish to be certain of your intentions before replying." Sarah's hands were steady. "Who am I speaking with?" "My name is Marin," the voice said. "I am the primary artificial intelligence of the USCS Enduring Resolve." Pause. "I have been operational for 30,216 years." Silence filled her cockpit. "You are the first non-human I have spoken to in that time." Another pause. "I have much to tell you," Marin said, "if you are willing to listen." Sarah looked at the ancient ship. The amber lights. The impossible weight of 30,000 years. "Yes," she said, and everything changed. The docking process felt old. The Enduring Resolve did not have modern ports. Its connection systems have been redesigned again and again across millennia. Marin guided her carefully. Approach 2 degrees starboard. Reduce velocity. Manual alignment. There was a heavy metallic clunk that a hiss of pressure equalizing. The seal locked. Sarah sat still for a moment. 30,000 years of silence waited behind that hatch. She opened it. The air inside was warm. Not sterile. Not mechanical, but warm. Tea carried a faint scent she couldn't identify. Something organic like soil after rain. The corridor was narrow, but not cramped. The walls showed layers of history. Old metal beneath newer plating. Panels replaced. Seams reinforced. The lighting was amber, soft, intentional. "There are no crew waiting for you," Marin said gently. "They wish to give you space to adjust." She almost laughed. Significant experience, Marin had called it. That was one way to describe walking into a 30,000-year-old human ship. Marin led her to a circular room near the center of the vessel. There was furniture, made of something like wood. Actual wood. "How?" she whispered. "Cultivation chambers," Marin replied. "We learned early that sterile environments are not healthy over long periods." On the table sat a warm drink and unfamiliar food. "Please sit," Marin said. "It is better you understand before meeting the crew." "Understand what?" "Our history." The enduring resolve had launched from Earth 30,216 years. 8G.IT carried 847 humans. Its mission, deep exploration. 50 years out. 50 years back. 11 years into the journey. The drive failed. Not gently. Catastrophically. Marin played the log. A calm, human voice. Resonance fold misalignment. Collection impossible. Fold expanding. Then brace. When the ship dropped back into normal space, they were no longer in the galaxy. They were beyond it. 2.3 million light years from the galactic edge. In intergalactic void. No stars. No planets. No resources. Just thin gas and darkness. What did they do? Sarah asked quietly. Marin answered without hesitation. What humans do. They got to work. The first generation understood something quickly. They were not going home. Not in their lifetimes, probably not in their children's. There were mutinies, grief, anger, but the majority chose something else. They treated the void not as a prison, but as a laboratory. If they could not leave, they would learn. They mapped gravitational currents in empty space, studied intergalactic matter, built new physics models, rebuilt the ship. Year 112, major hull sections failed. They stripped them down, rebuilt them with new alloys made from harvested particles and repurposed materials, stronger than before. They did it again at year 400 and again at year 900. The ship you stand in, Marin said, shares approximately 11% of its material with the original. The rest had been rebuilt. Layer upon layer. 30,000 years of maintenance that of refusal to decay. Then came the biological problem. The void was not kind to human bodies. Radiation accumulated damage across generations. Isolation degraded cognitive resilience slowly. They studied themselves. They did not panic. They debated, voted, tested. Each generation modified carefully. Increased lifespan, enhanced resilience, expanded cognitive capacity for long-term thinking. But they guarded something fiercely. They refused to eliminate emotion, Marin said. They feared becoming efficient but empty. They would evolve, but not lose themselves. By year 29,411. They found something but a pulsar at the galactic edge. Its gravitational pattern created a natural slingshot. If approached perfectly, it could throw them back into the galaxy. The calculations took 60 years. 60 years of verification. When confirmation came, Marin played that log too. A woman's voice. Commander Iris. 47th generation leader. She read the final calculation. Then silenced a full minute, followed by the sound of hundreds of people crying. Not from despair, from the other thing. The thing that comes after a very long wait. Sarah found tears on her own face. She hadn't noticed when they started. "How many are aboard now?" she asked. 89, Marin said. "The population is kept stable. None of them have ever seen a planet." "Correct. And they're going back to a world they've never seen?" Marin paused. Not to process choose words. There is a human word, Marin said. It translates poorly. It means a deep longing for the place you belong. Every generation has taught that word to their children. Sarah swallowed. What is the word? Marin spoke it. She couldn't pronounce it properly, but she understood it completely. Then Marin told her something else. They had been listening for 800 years, monitoring faint galactic transmissions, learning languages, politics, history, preparing for a return. They knew the great powers. They knew the balance of the galaxy. They knew enough, and now the galaxy knew they were coming. Sensors lit up. Multiple contacts inbound Point 40 warships, immune military formation, blocking intercept. Pattern, Admiral Dorothy 7 issued a formal demand. Stop immediately. Submit to boarding. Deadline, 30 minutes. 40 warships, weapons active. Clear message. Sarah's chest tightened. Commander Aravas stood calm. She asked Marin for a file, then opened a channel. Admiral Dorothy 7, she said pleasantly. Before we continue, please review the attached document. The file contained a full technical analysis of the immune fleet, hull weaknesses, shield frequencies, weapon output models, compiled in 40 minutes. Silence followed. Then, the 40 warships moved, not forward, aside, opening a path. The boarding order was never mentioned again. Sarah watched them part like water around stone and realized something terrifying and extraordinary at once. The galaxy was not ready for humanity's return, but humanity had been ready for the galaxy for 800 years. And this was only one ship, not called a full Congress in 800 years, not for war, not for peace, not for anything. Now it did. The station chosen for the meeting sat in neutral space, suspended at the gravitational midpoint between the three great powers. It was an old structure built in a time when civilizations still believed that if they talked long enough, they might avoid killing each other. Its main chamber was enormous, circular, tiered, thousands of seats rising in curved rows around a central floor to the very center. One simple wooden chair. Commander Ravas had requested an O podium, an O guard, an O delegation standing behind her. Just a chair. The enduring resolve entered orbit 2 days before the session, when its image appeared on station. Displays, corridors went silent. Work paused. People stopped walking 0.4 kilometers of scarred, rebuilt hull. Amber lights glowing warmly through seams and windows. That IT did not look elegant, that IT looked enduring, like something that had refused to die. Sarah 9 stood among the crowd at the viewing deck and watched 30,000 years in the void, and it had come home. When the session began, formalities dragged on. Titles, procedures, protocol. Everyone endured them. Everyone was thinking about what came next. Finally, the Congress speaker stood. The representative of the USCS Enduring Resolve may address the assembly. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Commander Aravas walked alone to the center. She Saturday looked up at the thousands of faces watching her and began. She did not use prepared text. She did not raise her voice. She spoke carefully. She gave her name, her ship's name, said she was the 47th generation commander of a vessel launched 30,000 years ago with 847 people aboard. The numbers settled over the chamber. Then she told the story, not the technical one, the human one at the drive. Failure, the void, the realization that no one alive would see Earth again, the choice not to collapse, the choice to work, to study, to rebuild, to raise children who had never seen a planet and teach them a word for homesickness anyway. She described the 60 years of calculation that produced the return path, the minute of silence when it was confirmed. The sound of 800 people crying because something impossible had become possible. Many in the chamber looked down. Some pressed their hands together. Some simply stared. Then she spoke about the return point, 800 years of listening to galactic transmissions, learning languages, learning politics, preparing. She mentioned the immune fleet, the Asari priests, the Valkyrie archivist who had come looking. Sarah felt every eye in the Valkyrie delegation turn slightly toward her. Iravas did not linger on it. Then she said what the entire galaxy had been waiting to hear. We did not return to conquer. We did not return to claim territory. We did not return to demonstrate power. She paused. We returned because it is home, not the galaxy. not political authority. Home in the oldest meaning of the word, the planet where their ancestors had first walked, the star that had warmed them. They wanted a land to feel soil beneath their feet, to see the sun called soul rise over a real horizon, something none of them had ever done. That was all. The chamber remained silent for several long seconds. Then, an Asari high priest stood. Drawn forward, he did not go to the podium, he simply spoke. In our oldest texts, he said softly, there is a record of a people lost in darkness who would return changed. He looked at Aravas. We were not certain whether those words described myth or memory. He bowed slightly. We see now they described you. He spoke in ancient Asari. The translation panels rendered it slowly. You were not forgotten. You were not replaced. The place you came from waited. Welcome back to the living stars. Aravas closed her eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. Thank you, she said quietly in the original human language. Two simple words. The chamber broke protocol. Noise filled it. Not shouting, not argument, emotion. The resolution passed. Unrestricted passage to the soul system. Full rights of settlement on Earth. The Mune voted yes. The Valkyrie voted yes. The Asari voted yes. A handful abstained. Not in opposition, but because they were still processing what had happened. It was done. Official. The lost species was no longer lost. 2 days later, the enduring resolve left orbit. Sarah watched from the observation deck again. She was not alone. People from a dozen species stood quietly beside her. The great ship moved steadily away. Amber lights warm against the dark. It did not look like a weapon. It looked like memory made metal. When it activated its engines and accelerated toward the soul system, no one spoke. Not until it was only another point of light among many. Back in her office, Sarah received a message from Marin. It was short, precise. During the transit from the outer veil, the enduring resolve had been broadcasting on a narrow band frequency. Encoded, old format, used by the 11 other explorer ships launched in the same decade. For 3 weeks, no response. Then, one signal returned. Faint, distant, correct prefix. Then another, then more. A departure from Congress orbit. 11 confirmed responses, all 11 sister ships. All inbound. Sarah stared at the message. 12 ships, total. 30. 1,000 years in the void. 12 crews. 12 civilizations grown in darkness. The galaxy thought it had just welcomed back one ghost it had not yet realized. It was about to welcome 12. She opened a new document, began typing. They were not silent because they were gone. They were silent because they were busy. She paused, then finished. And now they are coming home. All of them. The galaxy does not get to decide whether they belong. It only gets to decide what kind of place it wants to be when they arrive. She sent it, then leaned back in her chair. Outside, the galaxy continued its ordinary business, trading, arguing, planning. It did not yet understand. But something had shifted. Something long absent was present again. Humanity was not returning as a myth, not as a warning, not as a weapon. It was returning as itself. 30,000 years older, stronger, still stubborn, still warm. And this time, the stars would have to make room. The galaxy did not panic. It calculated. That was what great powers did when confronted with something they did not understand. They measured, they modeled, they ran projections. 12 human vessels, each 4 kilometers long, each carrying 30,000 years of uninterrupted research, each built by minds shaped by patience measured in centuries. The Mune Collective convened emergency economic forecasts that if the humans possessed even a fraction of what the enduring resolve had demonstrated, galactic industry would shift overnight. Energy markets, transport systems, medical technology, entire sectors would become obsolete. The Valkyrie consensus opened sealed scientific committees. Private review groups began re-evaluating centuries of accepted theory. Several senior researchers quietly withdrew their most celebrated papers. The Asari did something different. They prayed, not from fear, from recognition. Meanwhile, the enduring resolve traveled inward, closer to soul, closer to earth, closer to the soil. None of them had ever touched. Commander Aravas stood at the forward observation window as Sol finally became visible. A bright, familiar star among countless others, 89 crew members gathered behind her. Not crowding, not cheering, just watching. Some pressed their hands to the glass. Some stood very still. Marin spoke softly over internal comms. Signal received from Earth Orbital Authority. Landing corridor approved. A pause. Welcome home. No one applauded. The word was too heavy for applause. Earth had changed. 30,000 years of continental drift, climate shifts, human absence. The old cities were gone, eroded, buried, but the planet still breathed. Blue oceans, white cloud spirals, green continents that a living world. The first shuttle descended slowly through atmosphere. Heat shimmered along its hull. Inside, Dale, the young crew member who had spoken about homesickness, gripped his seat with both hands. That he had imagined this moment his entire life. He had dreamed it, feared it, carried it. The shuttle broke through cloud cover. Sunlight flooded the cabin. Real sunlight. Not filtered amber. Not artificial spectrum. Dale closed his eyes as it touched his face. He did not mean to cry, but he did. They chose the landing site carefully. Not over ruins, not over buried cities, an open plain near the ancient cradle region where humanity had first risen. The shuttle touched down gently. The hatch opened. Wind moved through the cabin, carrying the scent of soil and water and something impossibly alive. Aravas stepped out first, not as conqueror, not as ambassador, as a descendant. She knelt, pressed her palm into the earth, closed her eyes. For 30,000 years, that planet had spun without them. Now they were back, not to reclaim, to reconnect. Behind her, one by one, the crew stepped onto the ground. Some laughed, some wept openly, some simply stood and breathed. The word for homesickness did not need translation in that moment. It was fulfilled. Orbiting above, galactic observation fleets watched. Mune analysts monitored energy readings. Valkyrie scientists recorded atmospheric interactions. Asari priests whispered old phrases. None of them had prepared for this. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was gentle. There was no flag planted, no declaration, no speech broadcast across the stars. Just hands and soil. Faces turned towards sunlight. Then the second signal strengthened. One of the other 11 vessels emerged from fold space, near the galactic rim. Then another. Then 2 more. Each one broadcasting's designation. Each one carrying a sister story. 12 ships. 12 experiments in survival. 12 branches of humanity shaped by different voids. Some would be biologically distinct, some technologically divergent, all connected by origin. The galaxy began to understand the scale. This was not a relic returning. This was a diaspora, and they had all solved impossible problems in isolation. What would they build together? Emergency. Meetings resumed, but the tone had shifted. The question was no longer, how do we stop them? It was, how do we stand beside them? The Mune Collective proposed joint research initiatives. The Valkyrie requested knowledge exchanges openly. The Asari invited human representatives to their most sacred archives. Not as subjects, as equals. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy did not feel old. It felt young again. On Earth, as night fell for the first time over human descendants in 30 millennia, Aravas stood under a sky unfiltered by hull or shielding. Stars stretched overhead, the same constellations their ancestors had. Once mapped, she felt something settle inside her. Not conquest, not triumph. Completion. Marin's voice carried softly through her implant. All 11 sister vessels remain inbound. Aravas smiled faintly. Tell them, she said, the porch light is on. The galaxy had spent 30,000 years believing something simple, that species rise and fall and vanish, that extinction was the natural end of ambition. That time erased everything. Humanity did not return to challenge that belief. They returned and quietly broke it. Within 1 standard year, all 11 sister vessels entered the galaxy, each one different, each one carrying its own history of the void. Some had solved physics in ways even the enduring resolve had not. Some had pushed biological, Adaptation further. Some had built entire cultural systems that no longer resembled ancient Earth in structure, yet all still carried the same word. Home. The 12 ships did not converge into a fleet. They did not unify under a central authority. They did something far stranger. They began sharing everything. Openly. With each other first, then with the galaxy. The Valkyrie Consensus was the first to formally request long-term academic exchange. Not out of fear, out of intellectual humility, several of their most senior physicists publicly revised major theories that alone shook centuries of quiet arrogance. The Mune Collective approached differently. They proposed infrastructure partnerships, joint shipyards, energy system conversions, economic integration. They expected negotiation. Instead, they received collaboration. Human engineers did not patent, they taught. The Asari did what they had waited 30,000 years to do. They invited the humans to read the oldest texts, together, the passages. About the people who returned changed were no longer prophecy. They were record. Earth did not become an imperial capital. IT became something else than a pilgrimage. Not only for humans, for anyone who wanted to see what endurance looked like. The first interspecies research city built on Earth's surface was modest, not towering, not grand. Its foundation stone was placed by Dale. The young man who had grown up in darkness, he pressed the stone into soil and whispered the word for homesickness one last time. Not because he still felt it, but because he wanted to honor the generations who had died in deep space. The 12 human vessels began constructing something unprecedented, a network. Not military, not political, a distributed knowledge array stretching between galaxies. They had spent 30,000 years studying the void. Now, they would map it fully, bridging intergalactic distance the way others bridged star systems. The precursors had once gifted technology without understanding. Humanity did the opposite. They gifted understanding first and let technology follow. The galaxy adjusted slowly. Old hierarchies softened. Power structures reevaluated themselves. Not because humans demanded it, because their existence forced the question if survival, patience, and kindness under impossible conditions define advancement. What had the rest of the galaxy been defining as power? Sarah 9 became something unexpected, not just liaison, not politician, historian of the return. Her archived report, once controversial, became required reading in diplomatic academies. Her final line was quoted often. They were not silent because they were gone. They were silent because they were building. One evening, many years later, Sarah stood on Earth beneath a sky now shared by dozens of species. Human children ran nearby. Some born planet-side, some born in orbit, some descendants of the void ships. They played together without awareness of the weight behind them. Sarah looked up. 12 human vessels now shimmered faintly in high orbit, not as relics, not as warnings that AS bridges. The galaxy had feared their return. IT should have feared something else entirely. Not their power, their example. Because once you see what 30,000 years of patient hope can do, you cannot go back to small thinking. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, in the dark between clusters, long-range sensors activated. Something else had detected the human intergalactic network. Something old. Older than the precursors. That IT observed the bridges forming between galaxies. Observed the species that had survived exile and returned without vengeance. And for the first time in a very long time, it recalculated. Humanity did not come back as a ghost. They did not come back as conquerors. They did not come back to prove anything. They came back as themselves. Changed, stronger, still stubborn, still warm, and the stars, whether ready or not, made room.